Hello and welcome to this edition of Search Sessions, where we meet and speak to board advisors, former C-suite leaders, and executive coaches about their hints, tips, advice for leaders out in the market. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by a former client of mine, a very close partner, the lovely Sarah Watson. Sarah's now based in New York City, but when we first met, it was way back in 2009 when she was head of planning and strategy at leading advertising agency DDB. Sarah has forged a illustrious career, probably one of the best strategic minds in the advertising sector, rising all the way through to chairman and global chief strategy officer of BBH, which I have to confess has always been my favorite advertising agency. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Robin. I'm excited to be here.
So I guess I'm fascinated to look back over your former career, as you've obviously taken a slight change in recent times, which we'll come on to. But if we're looking back at your career, who were the first leaders that you looked up to? Who were some of the people that you learned from and you aspired to?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think, I joined advertising in the late 90s in London and, in the 2000s. I mean, the wealth of leadership talent that there was in the business at that moment, there probably still is. But the way it felt like to me, it was just so it's just so rich. It was like the House of Lords or something. So it's very hard to pick people out. I mean, I came from the sort of the James Best, Chris Powell, Chris Kaup era of BMP, who are just, sort of the old school of incredible leadership. But I mean, it really all kicks off for me. Obviously, it's exactly who you'd expect me to say from BBH. I mean, Jim Carroll and Nick Kendall, just incredible leaders. But Gwyn Jones, I think in particular, really spoke to me. I don't know if it's because he's got this same Northwest accent that I have, but I had an extraordinary kinship with just the way, very, very direct and charismatic leadership style that he had. So, but there's so many more, and I need to name women as well in all of that. Heather Alderson, fantastic leader. Me, there's so many.
I know, I can imagine. I imagine you've rubbed shoulders with some of the best. How, when you were first put into a kind of a leadership position, which sometimes in strategy, doesn't always happen right towards the beginning of your career. But how did you start off as a leader, and then how do you feel you evolved and got the best kind of success out of teams?
So I was always driven by the idea that I wanted to be the leader that I never had. Because actually the leader that I really do want to bring into this conversation, though, from all of this, the true leader who really spoke to everything that I wanted to be, is Colleen de Courcy, who was global creative director of Wieden & Kennedy, global chairman, I think, in the end of Wieden & Kennedy, an extraordinary leader. And something about the way she was in her body that just awakened something in me very, very deeply. And I'll never forget, she established really Time's Up advertising in America, in New York. And it was launched in very, very toxic, difficult circumstances. And it was launched at this big town hall. I'll never forget, she went and she sat at the edge of the stage and addressed this huge audience that was going live all over the world. And that ability to connect with people in a really intimate way was really everything that I sort of wanted. So when you say to me, what leader did I want to be? I wanted to be that, but I only met Colleen much later in my career. I wanted to be the leader that I felt I was looking for, that just spoke in a very natural but intense and intimate way, I think, and that really spoke to the back benches.
Interesting. And how obviously when you start to reach the kind of the C-suite level and titles such as kind of global chief strategy officer, chairman, chairwoman kind of come along, how does that change your attitude or not change your attitude as to kind of driving leadership or solving leadership challenges?
So it's such a brilliant question to think about that from where I'm sitting now and to look back, because actually what I experienced was that the higher up I got, the more I loved my job, because the more I was talking about why are we here? Who are we today in this moment? And why are we here? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it's so funny. You're very nice, Robin, saying that I'm a great strategic mind. Increasingly, well, not even increasingly, I've completely cut ties with any notion that I'm in any way a strategist, because I think what the story of me ending up now in this seat as a coach is letting go of that, is just saying, actually, no, that is what I was always doing. What I was always doing was saying, what is the poetry of this moment? What are the words that these people need to hear? How do I need to be in my body now to meet whatever is happening? And in a way, I think that's why I've become a coach, because that's all I was ever looking for in other people as well, was what is it about you? What are you bringing to this moment? What is alive in you now that you can bring something to this situation that you didn't even know you had? And so I think that's how I've always spoken to people. I've always addressed people knowing that they are incredible, and that and I don't mean that in a sort of air punching, build you up sense. I mean it as a sort of deep embodied belief that people have so much more power than they are using in any moment, and all you need to do is see it and name it and bring it out. So that's what I got to do more and more as a leader, the higher up I rose. And I think really my story is one of getting to such a point where that was all I was doing, that was all I was interested in doing, and anything that wasn't that was completely irrelevant to me. Anything that was to do with operationalizing, landing the plane, making the plan, making it happen, those are the things that I'm really not called to in any way whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And so this has been my journey, actually. It's this leadership vision, I suppose, that has landed me where I am now.
So you think the innate fascination with people was always there, but it was the rise to the top that almost showed you the new direction?
Yeah, I don't think it's even an innate fascination with people. It's an innate belief of validity. Maybe it's my own quest for my own validity. Like, I am here, I'm real. And I'm not sure I always felt that when I was growing up. And I think I connect with that feeling in other people. I want to bring everyone's validity into the room. And I think that's probably how I led. I'm only putting this into words as I'm putting the whole picture together for you now, but I think that's how I led, that I just wanted people to feel valid in themselves, that they were a part, they could dig deep and achieve something together.
I'm always fascinated when someone's used to a culture in one place and then they move their life to a different cultural setting. Do you feel that the US culture being exposed to broader businesses over there, do you feel that's had a part to play at all in your direction or not?
So this is I could talk for hours about this, but I mean, I think one of the things about America is that, and it depends where you're sitting in the globe as to whether you agree with this or not, but definitely New York, the future is ahead of us. We are making it. We are making it up as we go along. We are becoming. And that's why you come to this city, even though it kicks your ass and it's like the worst place in the world to live, as well as the greatest place in the world. And I think that's a huge part of it. And I do think in Europe, there's just a sense, and I'm caricaturing here, but there is a sense that we've done it. we've done a lot, and obviously we're trying new things, we're innovating and we're growing and we're doing new things, but there's this explosive embodied sense of you've got to run right into the future and make it with your own bare hands. And I think that's what makes America quite a brutal place as well, that sense that you can't sit back. I mean, there is no safety net here. That is another part of it. But that everything is on the table here. And so I think that's a very big part of why I'm able to do this work, because we live in this kind of culture of becoming.
Take me back to pandemic time, epiphany, one chapter closes, Luminous Coaching comes on. What was that transition like, and what was the learning process for you to become a coach?
So it was really unshaming, exactly what I'm talking about. It was really getting real about, I have this sort of term that I use, which is called the unspoken inner mandate. And I think everyone has an unspoken inner mandate, something that they believe they are showing up to work to do, regardless of what's on their job description. And I think my unspoken inner mandate was, I am seeing the greatness in others. That's what I'm doing, in brands, in people, in the agency. And that was literally all that I was doing. And when I cleared out my office and I looked through all my books, those were the only notes I was ever taking. That was disastrous for the times when that was not required. I think anyone that worked with me will laugh or cry. Like I was really completely outside of my power when I wasn't in these moments of sort of, becoming. And so I just got this very clear sense that I'd run out of road, and that there was no more left for me to do these jobs anymore. And that actually I just had to get really real and really just double down and do the thing that I'm good at. And so that's what I did. And I think part of the pandemic as well for me was, I used to get dressed up, speak to the room, see clients, get on planes. And I thought that was what was my job. And I thought that's what I enjoyed. But when we went into lockdown and it was just me on Zoom, intense like this, and then closing it up, I was like, this is it. This is all I need forever. Intense, deep, profound conversations. Sign me up. So it was all these things coming together at once that really kind of brought it home.
Obviously, we've talked recently about your focus changing and evolving, as you find yourself as a coach dealing with different founders and different leaders, each one bringing a new challenge. When talent, and especially leadership talent's misfiring, what secret ingredient is needed to correct their path to success?
Yeah.
How is it that you go about working with leaders?
So I love that you say misfiring, because this is my favorite conversation. When I get a leader who calls me up and says, I've got this absolutely incredible person, they're a huge asset to my business, and their behavior is absolutely unacceptable and this cannot continue. And I love these conversations, because I already know that I love this person, partly because it was me, but partly because I have this very, very deep belief that people that it takes a lot of work to sabotage an organization. It takes a lot of work to show up and be destructive. And that there is something in you, in this person, something intelligent that wants to express itself. And that's what we have to deal with. I think this is a pretty radical approach. I'm never, ever looking through a shamed lens to correct this person, to change their behavior, to put them right. That is not going to help anyone in this moment. It's just very triggering. It just puts everyone back into their entrenched position of who they are. You have to meet the force of whatever is going on, and meet it looking for its intelligence. So, so the person showing up, I often think that sometimes people have come with a change agenda and they come with a change mandate, but they might be going too fast. And that might be tearing everyone up, or they might be going too slow. And But this is all still exactly what their own inner mandate is putting them towards. And the only way you can change this is to get in an unshamed dialogue with whatever is going on. So I love these conversations, but I feel it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same with everyone to a degree, and particularly with founders, because it's the organization is an expression of yourself ultimately. So you have to figure out what is being expressed here, which is not often explicit. But yeah.
Founders and entrepreneurs, I think, often, have an interesting balance of skills. And one thing that I always look at from the outside is agencies in themselves, often when they're set up with these very different personality types that all blend together to create this amazing group of people. There's a lot of symmetry in that to in the kind of the tech founder-led startup scale-up world. These very different personalities, sometimes scientific, sometimes creative, sometimes analytical, sometimes a mixture of all of those things. And they need help. They need external help, they need internal help, and they need to know how to build and construct great teams and bring great people with them.
Yes.
Why do some leaders thrive on the heat and the high stakes, particularly on those entrepreneurs and founders? And can you think of times where you've had to deal with great moments of friction,
yeah,
and use that to help someone propel themselves?
Yeah. I mean, this is sort of one of my favorite conversations, because, to found a business, to be an entrepreneur, it takes so much. You've obviously got something very deep driving you. There's something that wants to come out of you. And so when you're dealing with energy like that, you have to meet it exactly with that force of energy. There's an entrepreneur that I'm very close with who really, who's really opened my eyes to sort of, how addiction and depression go hand in hand a lot of the time with this very high achieving, force, because that's the energy. This is the magnitude of who people are, the magnitude of their talent, the magnitude of their gifts, and also the magnitude of what can go wrong when they're really going wrong. And so for me, it is this same conversation. We have to get to the experience of what's happening, because it might be showing up as overwork, or it might be showing up as, being disrespectful to the team. But there's always going to be something underneath that is intelligent, that has a wisdom that needs to come out in another way. So I spend a lot of time kind of engaging with these energies, if you like, to figuring out, okay, what is actually going on here right now? Let's maybe find other ways that this can come out and benefit your business, and not disrupt your team in the same way.
And is the part that you enjoy the most out of that helping the individual, or unlocking that piece that to its full potential that maybe they didn't know that they had?
Oh God, Robin, it's unlocking the piece.
Yeah,
it's unlocking the piece, because which obviously, of course, which helps the individual because they own it. But it's freeing up this pent up energy. Something is pent up, like, increasingly I end up in conversations about, alcohol and drug abuse and things like this. And it is these hungers that people have for something. They're really thirsting for something that they need, but they're getting the wrong thing. There's something that can nourish them that might look entirely differently. And so in a way, for me, the most satisfying thing is when you can unshame this force, you can let it out, you can let it be what it needs to be without being destructive. Yeah.
And how would you, for all the viewers listening to this and maybe thinking about some of those elements that are in themselves, how would you describe this type of coaching? How would you describe what you're doing with these individuals to find themselves?
Well, I suppose the method that I was trained in is integral coaching, but that I think what the common denominator of what we're bringing into this conversation is the body. And I think if there's anything that really is so important to me, it's that I don't work in a cognitive way. I don't work in what's the model, what's the grow model, what's the framework, what's the plan, what's the accountability. And obviously those things are very important at a certain level. I work at the space where those things have run out of road, and we're dealing with situations that demand you dig deeper than anything that can be said on a framework. We're really dealing with human beings. And I think the amazing thing about human beings is how incredibly flexible we are, and how we are set up. We've evolved to deal with this vast level of complexity, which now the world is really coming at us with. It really is. And all those models and all those beautiful frameworks and the books and the management, the MBAs, everything, love it. It runs out of road. And so I'm dealing with how you can tap into a deeper wisdom, how you can really sit. And I guess it comes back to how we began this conversation, which is how you meet the room exactly as it is. Not how you thought it was going to be, not how you planned it was going to be, not how you wanted it to be, not how you have put on your goals or on your slide that you wanted it to be, but actually how it is. And that is to do with being in your body. That is to do with settling in and not racing off into the future or pulling back into the past, but meeting the situation exactly where you are.
Brilliant. What a great summary. And a good way to conclude this session. Look, Sarah, I've always enjoyed my time speaking to you. This has been illuminating as always. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your beautiful questions, Robin. You made me dig deep.
Thank you.